Is Around the Circle. I'm Jeff Cook. I'm with the KJ Ramsey. KJ is a licensed counselor specializing in trauma recovery. She's the author of 4 books, including the upcoming The Place Between Our Pain. KJ, I've never met you, but we are fellow Coloradans.
Yes.
There are some shout outs to the Welcome to Colorful Colorado signs in your memoir, and I'm thrilled to have you.
Thank you. And yay for fellow Coloradan.
Come on. I loved reading through your book. It's a memoir, but it read to me much more like a book of poetry. And I am a literature major, and so it was something that of all things I haven't got into. I don't get into memoirs very much, and I don't read poetry very much. But it is the case that I'd spent a lot of time in those worlds and really enjoyed and was refreshed by your book. So highly recommended.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I just cannot help myself but be poetic, so I appreciate that was welcome with you.
It was. This is also, aside from loving to have authors on, this is an Enneagram podcast, and you're familiar with Enneagram. And just to jump into the book through that prism, I would love to hear your Enneagram story. How'd you come to this?
Oh, goodness. So I don't know how many years ago it was now, a very, very long time ago, but my husband and I, Ryan, who is a 9 and I'm a 4, we were part of this, actually, I talk about it a little bit in the book, this spiritual formation cohort in California. And part of it was a 2-year-long cohort where we would go once a quarter with the same group of people, which turned out to be a pretty toxic group of people. But one of the positive things about this experience was that we really worked through spiritual formation through the lens of the Enneagram. And so they took a pretty narrative-based approach to typing, and it revolutionized our life. Like, it took a while for me to really land on what my type was. I think in large part because trauma can muddy the waters of how we see ourselves, and post-traumatic growth can highlight the ways that we've become healthier that maybe aren't necessarily our core type, but are like the thing that we needed to develop because of the pain that we were going through. So I looked like a pretty damn healthy 1 there for a while, and I was like, no, this isn't really like owning me as much as I think it should. And it's because I wasn't actually an I'm a 4. But yeah, that's kind of the Enneagram origin story. But it changed our marriage because my husband as a 9 and me as a 4, we're very different, even though we're both withdrawing types. And it helped give us this place of consideration for how the other person sees the world, and also gave us room to like take ownership of how we want to become more than the like prisons that we've put ourselves in with our personalities. So yeah. I'm so thankful for the Enneagram in my life.
Not spoken of enough that sometimes folks come to Enneagram through very unhealthy spheres of people. That needs to be talked about, though.
Right? Yeah, because it's so vulnerable.
Truth, right?
No, for real. One of the leaders of the cohort was like, I was really questioning things, and I was really trying to like pay attention to my story dynamics. And so I came back like months later to the next cohort, and I was like, I just don't feel like I'm a 1. And they were like, you just don't want to be a 1.
Sure.
Which is just, like that's actually, you're in a position of power. There's this kind of teaching is vulnerable and holds some authority. And so we have to be very careful, I think, about what we, like the knowledge that we claim to have about someone else's psyche. And, you are the expert on your own existence. And we should hold care and consideration and respect for that. He was wrong. And I didn't just hate being myself. I actually, that wound of feeling misunderstood by him ended up helping me be attuned to my core wound of feeling misunderstood my whole life.
Mm.
So it ended up working out, but yes.
It's a good word there. And you can speak to that not just as somebody who has experienced unhealthy leadership in that space, but you're a professional in this space. So I imagine there's worthwhile rules and principles that can be employed for talking about people's inner life there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just really strongly believe in the power of autonomy and agency. And so, as a therapist who focuses on trauma, I believe it is very important that we grow in self knowledge in our own path, that it's not placed on us. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you need to, I think there's maybe often this hurried feeling like we should tell someone what we know about them. As a therapist, I often know things about my clients because I have seen a lot of people and I follow the patterns, and I might know something about their inner life that they don't yet know about themselves. But if I make all of that knowledge, I articulate that knowledge too early, I'm going to rob them of their own process of healing and becoming. And so we do have to leave a lot of room for patience in the slow unfolding of how we know ourselves, and to like carefully take risks in the knowledge that we do share about what we know about the people we love and are with.
To sidetrack for just a second, because this has become a common topic in our circles, the are there worthwhile things to say to people who are Enneagram informed and really love Enneagram, know a lot about Enneagram, and it is a powerful tool in their hands, but they haven't done a PhD in counseling? When talking about healing and becoming, how do you know? How do you know what steps are appropriate and what steps are best to hold off on?
Are you asking in the context of knowing for someone else or for yourself?
Knowing for someone else. That a lot of the people that listen to our podcast are really informed. They're not necessarily professional therapists, but they
Hmm.
do love Enneagram and love talking about it with their friends, and it brings stuff up, as you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think context is always key, right? So the the patterns, the rapport, the amount of trust that you have already in any given relationship should dictate what level of risk you can take in sharing your own observations about your loved one's behavioral patterns. So there's certain relationships in which someone has earned the right to be heard because they have known me across time and have shown themselves to be safe and reliable. And so, like, think of my friends Pat and Sarah, who are kind of like spiritual godparents to my husband and I. They have seen us through so many different seasons of life that they get to say a lot. They can point things out to us that someone I met, the person who connected us, is a newer friend. And so Jameson, who I love, like, he doesn't get to have he doesn't get to take the same risks
Yep.
with my soul as people who have known me longer. I think there's also the space, like you're talking about people that are in relationships that aren't therapeutic and professional, but in the therapeutic realm as well. Like, you do have to grow rapport before taking certain risks. And I try to take my time with people, even with my own clients, before I bounce on them with some big knowledge, about their personality dynamic.
I love that answer. Less about being informed about the diagnosis and what healing looks like, and much more about the connection that you
Relational
have
safety.
and whether
Yeah.
or not you can speak. So that's well said. Apparently, your book that's coming out that can be pre-ordered right now. What's the date that it releases? Do you know?
It releases May 19th.
Boom.
May 26th, yes.
But can be seen on places that pre-orders take place.
And there's a little sample on my website now too. So
what is your website?
ajramsey.com.
Easy to remember.
Easy to remember. All the things are there, all the links.
I bet you it's in the show notes as we speak. Apparently, this book is about pain, but that's not in the subtitle. Joy is in the subtitle. So let's talk about joy.
Yes.
What's your thoughts on joy, KJ?
Oh man, joy is wonderful and terrifying. So when I set out to write this book, first of all, it was not supposed to be a memoir, and I went rogue because my life went rogue on me. But it was going to be a book about joy, and I think it still is. I had done a little not scientifically validated survey of my readers of my previous books, and asked them what the word joy evoked in them. And I was so grieved at the responses. The majority of my readers, when they hear the word joy, feel that it is elusive, that it's not for them, it's for other people. They're not sure they can trust it. They feel like if you have joy, it's probably going to be ripped away from you pretty soon, which is Brene Brown's concept of foreboding joy, that for a lot of us, joy is attached to fear. And so we often almost like prematurely limit ourselves from receiving joy because we're afraid that it's going to be taken away if we have it. Mm-hmm. And so I had set out to write this book to be like, joy is for you no matter what. And I was at the healthiest that I had been as an adult after over a decade of dealing with chronic illness. Yes, yeah. Physically and mentally healthiest that I had been. And well, very quickly into that process of writing, my life fell apart, and I was forced to be in the exact same place as most of the people who responded to that survey, and had to discover, okay, like the other shoe dropped in my life. Is joy still for me? Can joy still find me here? And yeah, it did. It did. And it looks a lot different and quieter than I think we often expect.
Perfect. You and I are meeting for the first time. I probably didn't mention this. I'm a philosophy professor. I wrote a book on C.S. Lewis, who talks quite a bit about joy, which you probably know, living in the Springs as a Christian. And
I was obsessed with C.S. Lewis as a teenager, so that's why. But yes,
we may have common language on these fronts. I am a big proponent of what I would call happiness, thriving, or well-being. When coming to joy, what I heard is it might get lost, but I didn't really hear what it is yet. When you think about what it is, what do you put your thumb on?
Yeah, I think joy is incredibly hard to define, and I do tend to resist giving definitions for extremely complicated physical and spiritual and emotional realities. So I'm just going to say that and be a little annoying. But I really view joy as a presence holds us even when we can't hold anything. And it is often a indefinable experience that comes about when we encounter another being or a beauty beyond ourselves, wonder. It's about encounter. And what I found in my experience in the story of this memoir, which is really the story of a big medical crisis, is that joy is there, very connected to love, and very connected to a hope that is shared, that is not held by one individual, but by many. Joy is this presence, this undergirding existence that is like a net that will hold us, we can fall upon when we're crashing out. But it's also something we can seek and we can pay attention for, our attention toward and experience. It's always there. It's whether we're able to perceive it or not.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you think, philosopher?
I'm going to separate it from happiness. I have a high view of happiness. A lot of folks want to
Mhm.
discount happiness, but I have a very high view of happiness. Joy, I've always connected with Lewis's language, which is something in the realm of what you're saying. It's something that can't be manufactured. You
Mhm.
almost stumble into it, and when you hit it, you have a realization, this is what I was made for. And
Yes.
it's a deeply, in my view, I associate it with nostalgia,
Mm.
and as though something that, yeah, is has, as you were saying, kind of a sweeping wonder and beauty. Kind of, it's like getting pushed into a lake, and suddenly you're in it, and you can't hold
Yeah.
on to it, but it is there, and you know that this is what you're made for. Lewis calls joy the serious business of heaven. That connects with me. Lewis
Yes.
talks about an early experience that he has with his brother of playing with tin soldiers in their at their mom's house before she died, and him being
Mhm.
filled with wonder, and that lived with him. I have an experience like that of being on a lake when I was young, in Washington with a family that wasn't mine, and just feeling something to that effect, that this is what I was made for. I would associate it with that. Is there anything
Yes.
worth building on there?
Well, yeah, definitely. I very much feel that is what joy is about as well. It's these moments, I think it exists whether I'm aware of it or not. And when I am aware of this joy, it's like it is like you know that this is what you were made for. It's kind of like coming in contact with wholeness.
Mm-hmm.
You get to taste this sense that all shall be well. I will always be held, loved no matter what. Being alive is good. And that those moments that we are actually aware of that thing, that quality of existence, I think can permeate and fill us so that we can carry that sense of belonging and belovedness, connection, hope with us into each day too.
Yeah.
It's this thing that fills us, restores us, holds us together. And one moment of joy can actually take you very far.
When thinking about joy, I resonate with everything you're saying. See this as, it's not just about me, it's about me and my connection to something else. Heart's message
Yes.
traditionally for fours is that you're seen at some level. Does being seen and understood, does that weave into your understanding or experience of joy?
Yes. I think that when I think about the stories in this book, I think maybe more precise is the feeling that I'm held. So there's a lot that I experienced throughout that story that like no one in my life around me could fully understand. No one in my life around me could fully understand what it was like to be me and be on high dose steroids and be totally out of my mind
Yeah.
and angry and confused and have like barely any executive functioning. But I was still loved, I was still accepted
Mm-hmm.
by the people around me. And that was joy to realize, like, even when I'm not my favorite version of myself and I can't even reach being her, I'm still held. That was joy.
It's lovely. What I assume you would say is that that one can experience some of the worst throes of a chronic illness and yet not be deprived of this thing called joy. Would that be fair?
Yes, and I would say what chronic illness exposes is actually just the chronic human condition. So, if this is true for me with 7+ chronic diseases, this is true for anybody. I think that what I experience in my body with autoimmune disease and other things that I deal with just brings me to the limits of understanding or trying to live as though being human is being one individual. Brings me to the limits of that.
Mm.
It forces me to accept that to be human is to be interdependent, and that space between me and others, including the space of my needs for love, for connection, for like basic survival needs to be met, is actually beautiful and good and meant to be. When I bless that, joy emerges there. That's something we all have to reckon with. It just comes in different forms for each of us. It could be through grief, it could be through the loss of a loved one, it could be through other forms of major trauma, the death of a dream. But I think that all of these death experiences that we have, whether it's actually coming really close to dying, like I did in this story in the memoir, or like other tastes of death, they bring us to the precipice of what we understand it means to be a person. And that gets to expand. It's the expansion of what it means to be a human, to be a person, and to be loved, where joy sweeps in through like wind.
Two footnotes. Longtime listeners will know two things about me. One, I hate feelings, and I try to avoid feelings, and so this will be just part of our conversation.
Yes.
Which I'm sure you will affirm. And secondarily, I'm the father of a very high functioning autistic child, and my mother had a long suffering terminal disease that lasted for about 8 years. The experiences of pain for my mom and the way that neurodivergence and the experiences of pain, specifically with sound and light for my child, in terms of connecting with themselves and with others, ends up being how I'm coming to this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Primarily, I can only come with my background. I've just as a we're 20 minutes into this invitation to correct my language when we jump into these things, because I have, as I was saying earlier, I have a really difficult time with dealing with these spaces, the spaces of pain, the spaces of feeling weak, and what can come in that space of embracing pain as one's identity and communicating one's identity through that prism. Putting all my cards on the table, one that I am, for conversation. And I would love to talk to you about your book on this front. But any thoughts on that before I start quoting you back to you?
I'll just put my cards on the table too. I have not shared the details of this publicly yet, but I plan to. So I might as well do it now. I am also neurodivergent, and through the experience that I wrote about in this book, my medical crisis drained me of any reservoir I had left to try to be more pleasing or appear more normal than I actually am. And that was how I had to face my own neurodivergence.
Yeah.
And I am literally in the middle of my autism assessment process. So yeah, I'm there with you.
I don't want to move off of that too fast. The idea that you have a reservoir of energy to appear has Enneagram all over it. And so I would love to push into that for 2 seconds.
Oh yeah, you're totally welcome to.
Because, and I also, I understand what that can feel like, at least in my spheres, because I've had a career that's on stage at times.
Mm.
How are you associating that with neurodiversity? And
Yeah. So, well, first of all, during the process of writing this book, I was so sick that I was very isolated from a lot of the world. So, once I was out of the hospital, I was living in my bedroom, in my bed, and I was barely able to I couldn't get down the stairs without help. I couldn't get down the hallway barely. Like, I was very limited. And I also, like I said, this wasn't supposed to be a memoir, but I had kept writing and I just felt compelled. This is what it's supposed to be. And I felt this. I talk about it actually in the author's note of the book. Like, when you've almost died, you no longer want to waste any of your time being anyone but your actual true self.
mm,
And so I just said, here we are, world. And I wrote this in a way that the self prior to the medical crisis could not have risked doing. I I showed people parts of myself that I have never put onto the page before. I've never, for example, maybe there's been moments of humor, but I've never let people see my weirdo humor in my books before. I didn't think I was capable of it. And I also didn't think anyone would accept me for it.
yeah.
I didn't use the language that I use. And partly that was because Christian publishing doesn't let you drop F bombs left and right, and general market does. But I through the writing of this book, I was without having language for what I was doing, I was unmasking, and I was welcoming these parts of myself that I had hidden or had been. I spent my whole life being afraid that people were going to figure out that I'm actually really weird,
Mm,
super weird. I was always like, okay, they're going to figure it out. Do we not? And I'm not afraid anymore because I know that existence is such a gift. And yeah, so I don't know if I'm answering your question exactly. Oh, you had hoped, or as fully as you had hoped, but the process of writing this memoir actually was a process of self-compassion and self-acceptance, and in daring to show up as my core self, not who Christian publishing wants me to be, not who other authors want me to be, not who theologians want me to be. Who am I?
yeah.
And being happy with her. So I'm good with if all of you decide you don't like her.
You are answering my question. I think so when there's another big term being bantered about in my circles, that idea of the true self just keeps coming up. It's come up in a very scientific book on the Enneagram recently, and putting my
Which one?
thumb would be
Is it the
personality and
sequel?
wholeness and therapy. Yeah, yeah. If you get into our work, I've started doing an extensive deep dive into it,
Oh,
which you can find. We're having a discussion group online, which we would be thrilled if you would like to come and join us. But yeah, in the sequel book.
I'm really loving that book too.
So I study personality for a living. Persona comes from a Greek word meaning a mask. I never relate to personality in that way very much, but one that I am, and you saw it earlier, I put my cards on the table very forwardly, too forwardly most of the time. But I do understand that I do know what it's like to have an appearance and to put forth an appearance.
Huh.
Is that when you think about the true self, for that you are, you're going to be the expert on this answer. What is the true self?
Okay. Great question. Just a tiny one.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm going to keep pushing you into these philosophical categories, which I'm sure
You
you were
want all the
amped up for.
definitions.
I do. This is my wheelhouse.
It's great.
I'm controlling the conversation in these ways because of my insecurity and avoidance of feelings.
Oh, I'm just making fun of you. Yeah, okay. Well, in therapy,
Hmm.
one of the modalities that I draw from is internal family systems. And we talk about the core self being like, a sense of calm, connectedness, coherence. We think of having coherence in with our story. So there's this. I love to think about the true self as this is the part of me that no amount of disease or despair can change or
Mm,
crush. That there is a core person here that is eternal, is good, and is infinitely loved. And that allowing, like, the lifelong journey is to be more and more freed to be directed by that person, not the parts of me that are so afraid of being misunderstood or afraid of the bad that could still happen to me or stuck in anger and resentment over all the bad that already has happened to me. But this deep abiding self who is loved no matter what, and who, in a way, like God is actually unchanging. Like there's a core there. That's where I would go, and I know that that is not a full definition. You're not going to be. It's not sufficient, but
I'm actually quite satisfied with that.
oh,
And
good.
I share the intuition that that is true. I think that some would want to push back against that understanding, but in my experience, that is true. And I don't think it's a defense mechanism to say something to the effect of, I think there's something that is me that lasts over time that experiences things that are real beyond simply, you know, my physical circumstances and my emotions. There
Mhm.
is something that's me that makes choices. I would want to be committed to that. There is something that's me that was me 25 years ago, even though every cell in my body has been replaced.
Yes.
That's intuitively true for me, and I have
Yeah.
no argument for it aside from it makes sense
Right.
to me. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
That's my experience.
speaking of the past, you wrote that chronic illness transforms our relationship with time, which I found a cutting line and filled with some depth. The When you think about your relationship with time, how did chronic illness change it?
So this is where things get a little mystical.
Love it. Let's go there.
So yeah. Well, very pragmatically, my experience of being chronically ill both compresses and stretches time.
Hmm.
So I can have seasons, whole days, whole weeks in which I am not capable of moving through time in the way somebody whose body works better than mine does.
Hmm.
And my experience of the ticking of the clock is almost lengthened in those days. And yet, and I can't help but think about this too in terms of like even through Jesus feeding feeding the 5,000 and the loaves and the fishes, and the way that what this little boy brought to Jesus was multiplied, like a little bit can become more. Strangely, is my experience with my own capacities as a chronically ill woman. Like, for example, yesterday, Monday and Tuesday, I had 20 hours of IVIG treatment. I was hooked up to an IV, hanging out with my nurse, feeling pretty shitty. And on those days, I typically can't get as much work done And part of that is like because the IV, it's gonna beep the whole time, and she's constantly interrupting to take my vitals, all of that. And then, but I have to like accept it. This is part of my life. This is part of what it means. This is part of what I have to do to stay alive and be okay. And then yesterday, post treatment, great. I was able to get so much done in so few hours. There's this strange expansion and contraction of the actual clock that I get to inhabit in a different way because of the way that my body comes to each day differently. And I get to learn to trust that 24 hours can mean more than 24 hours. And that, like, this is something my husband and I talked about last week. I don't really resonate with needing to hear I am enough. I resonate with needing to hear there is enough. Like, there is enough time. There is enough energy. There might not be enough. You know, I mentioned before we started recording last week, I had to cancel a podcast right before having the interview because I was too sick that day. There wasn't enough energy for that particular experience. And yet, somehow, in the larger arc of my life, there is enough time, energy, love, belonging for me to exist and to feel loved and to contribute to the world. And that has everything to do with time and everything to do with space. And there are certain experiences in our life, like chronic illness, that almost like take our hands and ungrasp them from holding so tightly to the clock and wishing that we could control what we're capable of doing and how much we can fit into each day and each season, and say, like, you don't have control, but you can show up and see the miracles that happen and the mystery of what can happen when you arrive open to what might be here and what else might show up to fill you. In disability world, we talk about this as crip time. I think there's a lot that, and you know, scripturally, like Kairos time, sort of like there's more here, and sometimes our limits bodily allow us to be open to the more.
This brings up 12 things for me. I'm going to say them
Great.
as fast as I can. One, I have to mention my pet peeve. I likewise was in the hospital once and needed to get some rest and was shocked at how often beeping was going on.
The beeps.
Isn't
They're
it the
terrible.
case that you're supposed to sleep in order to get better? And you have specially designed the rooms to be the least conducive to getting sleep. How hard would it be to move the beeps outside? I don't need to hear the beeps. I'm the one person in the world that doesn't need to hear the beeps. This needs, like, that's a $12 billion idea right there. Those medical people, they got cash to, and of course they're all geared towards serving those who are sick. And I'm sure that they would love to invest more in that as opposed to replacing out-of-date
So you really resonated with those parts of the book.
Those parts of the book, I was one that I am saying, this needs to change now. Don't you see what you're doing to this poor woman?
Oh, that's hilarious.
Secondarily, you're confirming something that I have a very strong intuition about. And it has to do with our security move when we feel really bad in our center. I think that, so I find when my mom died, I find when things are really going badly in my world, I don't necessarily move into my stress move. I go into 4 space when I get stressed out. I suddenly find that I'm in 7 space and getting goofy and future focused. And in your book, you consistently are getting into your body in the midst of a chronic illness, which I found fascinating. You're talking about lakes and pancakes and wildfires. You brought up the word agency as a primary for you a minute ago. All of these are buzzwords for a center that is not yours and is not your stress move. You're moving elsewhere into your body in a really profound way. I don't know that I would, just to float it, do you have wisdom there in terms of what happens through grief and trauma that sometimes moves you into that space. Because in talking about joy, that's exactly what I would want to say is something is secure in a way that it shouldn't be, but all of a sudden you're experiencing it.
Yeah. So, okay. In the Siegel book that we were just referencing, I love how he talks about like the personality, moving from personality being a prison to a playground.
Yeah.
And of course, I love that because I'm obsessed with alliteration. But also,
Longtime listeners will know that I hate alliterations.
yay!
Just
Did I
for
drive you
contrast.
crazy, by the way, through the book? Because I did put the warning in there for people like you.
Of all things, I don't recall a lot of alliterations, so
Bless,
they were
bless my editor.
Sneaky.
I feel like I just won at life. Okay, I'll get back to the point. So, okay. I consistently find that pain and including emotional pain and the experience of trauma, like it's apocalyptic in that it reveals what's there and it's an invitation to either contract or expand. And so like turns out I don't want to be depressed all the time about my life. And when I stick with only focusing on what's wrong or what's missing, it doesn't go very well for me. So I have habituated myself over these years, particularly since knowing and learning that I'm a 4, that the path of right action for me is action. I don't need to just stew on how I feel about the shitty stuff that's happening to me. I need to lift my head and look out. I need to engage creative practices to be able to actually move through my life without my own personality becoming a prison. So, yeah, there's so much levity in the book. And so much like attuning to the natural world because that is me choosing to survive because myself can be the prison that shrouds me in shame and despair, but it also when I choose to become more like the therapist Phil Stutz talks about these death experiences, and like we talked about earlier, like it doesn't have to be that you actually like had a near death experience like I did, but it could be the death of your career or your finances, the death of your parent. Like these experiences of death, it's like it breaks open. You have this frame of your life, and I think this tracks really well with Enneagram language of like the construct of the box through which you see everything, the lens, your personality is this frame. And then the death, the small experience of death comes and it just shatters that frame, whether you want it to or not. And suddenly you're given the choice to either like curl up in the corner of the little box you were living in and stay there and be really pissed at everyone and everything for breaking the box. Or you can be like, I wonder what's out here. So I think these traumatic experiences, like the ones that I read about in the memoir, they're an invitation to expand and to become more whole, to draw from the goodness of how other people other strengths that I don't like naturally have. It's an invitation to expand.
First, gold stars on the use of apocalyptic. It is about revealing what's inside, often neglected
Yes.
by men with microphones who don't understand how to read old books. Secondarily, you forgot to mention that being resentful of death and just being angry all the time is also healthy, right?
Right. I forgot. We want to be angry all the time.
I needed just a little bit of affirmation in terms of my
Oh my
knee jerk
goodness.
reaction to death as it seeks to
Oh,
shatter the things that I built that sandcastle, and it was quite lovely before you came and kicked it over.
right. Yeah, no, let's be clear here. I wasn't happy about what happened to me.
Yes.
I still am not happy with it.
Um, thirdly, I think that's a stellar way of thinking through things, and I mean, I associate that much more with the healthy sides of Eastern thought in terms of just being more open-handed to
Mhm.
the temporary nature of things. I have a very difficult time embracing how temporary things can be. That's what I heard.
Yeah. Something that's coming to mind as you say
Please.
that is like in in what happened to me in this medical crisis, I was reduced in a way. Like I couldn't access a lot of the things that make me feel like me, including for a long time there, like getting into nature. These things
Yeah.
that like avenues to feel grounded and good were pretty difficult to access. And even my mental state was so reduced because of all the medicine I needed to be on to save my life. There's it's it was a terrible, terrible feeling to almost like feel like, okay, who am I? That she's gone. Is she gonna come back?
Right. Yeah.
Where'd
Yeah.
she go? And also like become something more.
That needs to be talked about in reference to what we were mentioning before in terms of your true self. Your true self isn't. Would you? I would assume you would say your true self is not static. It's going someplace.
Yeah, like there is, I think it's both. I think it's both that there's an enduring,
Yes.
like immutable nature to
Mm-hmm.
the self, the core self, and perhaps our perception and our capacity to inhabit that self is
Mm-hmm.
ever changing.
Yep.
And the things that we don't want to us, parts of our stories that we would not have written for ourselves, the invitations we most need to inhabit the truest self.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fuck that. Damn, it's just true.
There's something I think that really needs more attention in Enneagram world is our relationship with time on these fronts. And what I'm hearing there is partially that we are going someplace, but I imagine that you'll have special aptitude for seeing where you've been and the beauties there and what needs to get named and elevated. It's not a gear that a lot of us have, and anyway, it's refreshing to have someone speak into that. I have two questions before I sign off. One of the things that I found most admirable, it got mentioned just a minute ago in your language about getting into your body, is that you are action repressed as a 4. Getting into your body is going to be something that's going to be very difficult. I've watched a lot of folks who, my mom is a 9, my partner who you met earlier, TJ, is a 9. Getting into their bodies, you're married to a 9. Getting into their bodies is something that seems to make them incredibly uncomfortable. 4s that I've talked to in the past seem to say that the world they experience is much more real in their inner feeling center than it is out there. And real similarly, 5s who are also repressed and doing seem to conceive of themselves as kind of a floating head, and that this physicality they just drag around. All of 4s, 5s, and 9s have such a difficult time, it seems, with their bodies. And yet what I'm hearing from you is not only you're engaging your body and you're finding paths habitually to get into yourself, but you have a tremendous obstacle in the way in terms of the pain you experience. And so there's got to be wisdom here. What is your secret, KJ?
Despair. Despair is my secret. I'm kidding, but I'm not kidding. No, but for real, it it is a survival strategy. I am brought too low to choose to stay stuck in my own internal world. I just know from experience, time and time again, that if I do not do something, I do not choose to actively engage in something life giving, I will drown in despair. And I have survived too much to just drown. Like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to drown. So, yeah, it sounds really silly, but I think
You
I
can't
take
stay here.
that I take that despair both seriously and unseriously. Like, I know the destruction that can happen and would happen if I choose to only believe the dark, what the dark has to say about where I'm headed. And I also know that storms actually do pass. And
Yeah.
so I've learned over the course of my life and over the course of it's been 17 years that I've had serious chronic illnesses. And yeah, they got way worse in the last 3 than they did at first, but a lot of years to learn that light comes when I look for it. And that, especially actively moving my physical body, will bring me there far more quickly and effectively than just staying inside the sea of my feelings. It's critical. Like something I'm doing right now. I don't know that it's giving away too much because I talk about my story all the time on the internet, on social media, but like the medicine that kept me alive in the hospital killed the bones in both of my knees. And my current stage of healing with my knees with avascular necrosis is that I need to do more and more weight bearing exercise. So I had, throughout the book, there's stories of me like swimming. And that was how I got through that season. But this season, I'm having to find new ways to move my body so that I can form even more strength and help my bones potentially grow. And you got to have impact for that to happen. So I have started I'm trying out the class of exercise, and it's basically like somatic therapy meets ecstatic dance and calisthenics and yoga.
Yeah.
And my goodness, like this season is difficult for me. I don't it probably doesn't sound like it, but I am an introvert and I much prefer writing these books and being by myself in my study and like coming up with metaphors. I prefer
Now you're
that
hopping
to
around with all these other yahoos.
yeah, like having to have I love these conversations, but I'm going to be tired later. Like I no offense, that's not you, it's me. Um, there's so much like extroverting I have to do when I'm in book release season, and that is really overwhelming to my nervous system. And I'm finding that, and like my health stuff remains pretty challenging. But when I take these moments, when I like choose the right action to basically counterbalance my innate tendencies, it's the joy that emerges is beautiful. So like when
Yeah.
I choose to yesterday at the end of the day, made my dinner and then like before we ate, did my class, did just a short like 30-minute class, but the joy that I felt in choosing to pause and engage my body, move my body in new ways, broke open my heart to be able to experience the joy that I most want and getting and like forming the habits of doing that even when it's challenging helps me move forward in touch with myself,
Mm.
which is also I think being in touch with the divine.
Love that. Love that as an answer. Um, I do not suffer with chronic illness. I do have arthritis in my 2 knees, and I am a lifelong skier, and I was doing Muay Thai, which I just love the hell out of, which is kickboxing. Um,
Ooh, cool.
and had to give them both up, and I like
Hmm.
broke down crying in this kickboxing class that I knew was my last one. Um, and it very like, and had to in transition to doing strength training. That was the, that was the recipe. The I can only imagine that I think I'm on the point 0.5, maybe 1 on the scale of 10 in terms of like how this would affect me, my life, and sense of self. And I do understand the despair that's there. One of the better, let me close with two things. One of the better lines I heard recently was in the recently released Hail Mary movie. Have you seen this?
Okay, I'm completely obsessed with it.
Perfect. Your answer concerning despair reminded me of something said there about God, which was something to the effect of one of the characters asks a scientist, "Do you actually believe in God?" And she says, "Beats the alternative."
Yep.
I studied this topic for decades. That's the best answer I've ever heard. I think that's really good.
I
And
literally had the same thought
yeah, it's like,
watching it.
yeah, that sort of reasoning really appeals to me. I assume that that's how that plays out in your mind and heart in terms of when thinking about really hard questions of meaning and purpose and what am I going to do with the day that's given to me. Allowing that darkness to have some power to motivate you to move really matters. That
Mhm.
routinely when I come to existential questions, that's exactly where I go. I push as hard as I can into dark spaces, and then I'm like, you can't live here. Let's go somewhere else, and that works for me.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
That's been my experience with faith, by the way.
yeah, do you
And I
want to talk
hope
about that?
that's kind of the feeling that you got in reading about even where I'm at with my faith in later parts of the book. That like and to me really humbled me. And I think of it like when I try to parse out, did this happen? Who is God in light of this? All of that. It's like, that's too lofty and grand for me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think of like Psalm 139, like, it's beyond me, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But I came to that same conclusion that you talked about from Project Hail Mary, that it's like, it's better than the alternative.
Mm-hmm.
And that there can be, I don't have to understand something for it to hold me. And I just let it be.
So much of it's a random way to do this. So much of Dr. Siegel's book is about usefulness of Enneagram. Usefulness is a different kind of truth. Uh, it's a theory about truth. Like this is true because it's useful is can be a statement. Um, it may very well be the case that you don't have a soul that endures over time, that you haven't been created for any specific purpose. You are on a very small rock going around a star that's one of hundreds of billions of stars in our galaxy, and our galaxy is one of hundreds of billions of galaxies in a larger structure that eventually is destined to die because we see it expanding and there's no reason to think it's going to contract. I generally think that with that in mind, I much prefer to say, you know what I am is I'm a living soul and I'm
Mhm.
going to endure forever. And I have reason to think that this was all created for a purpose. And I find that very useful. And it's also the case that when I see people like yourself who actually are going down some similar paths, I see beauty there that is really attractive to me. And I don't know that I'm like one that I am. I try and convince people to believe what I believe all the time, and this is a very bad habit. But that is where I land personally in terms of these sorts of questions, and I like making my home there.
Me too.
Last words?
It's a better home. It's a better home than the crowd of despair. So,
So hard to live in that space. It's there.
yes.
Well, next time we talk, we'll talk about the perhaps more about the exit door you found, like when you get to the very bottom there. 'Cause that's valuable. What's the McCain line? What's the McCain line? It's always darkest before it goes completely black or something like that. KJ Ramsey, her book, The Place Between Our Pain, a memoir of what joy can survive. is going to come out here in May. It's been fantastic meeting you. For those who want to see KJ live, she's going to be doing a event with the Suzanne Stabile. I assume that you're going to be talking not only about trauma and joy, but overlapping that a little bit with Enneagram yourself.
Yeah, I do feel that Suzanne, as the Enneagram godmother, holds the most Enneagram wisdom.
You can hand that off.
So it is a little bit daunting to speak of the Enneagram in front of Suzanne, but yeah, I think we really do plan on like roofing off of each other a lot too, bringing our embodied wisdom. So like my life experience with trauma as a therapist, a survivor of trauma myself, her lifelong experience with the Enneagram, bringing them together. And I really believe in experiential learning. So I'm hoping I have some things up my sleeve to kind of, for learning that's not just going to be like me talking up front, dropping knowledge, hopefully give us kind of imagination for how we can move through trauma. It's who we are.
It's lovely.
Excited. Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Well, it's going to be in Colorado. It's April 17th and 18th. I'm going to be there. Some of the other folks who do podcasts on our channel are going to be there as well. And if you can make it, you should certainly sign up, get some tickets. It's going to be a good time. Talking trauma. How can that not be just a party?
So
right there?
fun. So fun.
KJ, it's a delight meeting you. I'm looking forward to talking with you in the future, meeting you in person, giving you a hug, and yeah, just appreciative for all your work and what you're bringing to the world.
Thank you so much.
Hey friends, it's Jeff. We're getting to interview some of the most intriguing people in the Enneagram world. There are already 20 plus interviews up at aroundthecircle.org, and we're continuing to add more. That site is where we're gathering and platforming all of our best work. Much of it is available for free. Katie Whitlock and I have been doing deep studies working through wings, stance, fear, anger, and shame in our Rewired series. I'm beginning to release chapters from my next Enneagram book, which I'm calling The Steps, for early review for your consideration. And we have monthly online workshops in which 30 or so folks gather to talk about their type. There's audiobooks, there's videos, there's lots of fun stuff, lots to like. Go to aroundthecircle.org, and may all good things be yours.